Hey there! Today, we're tackling a topic that many people face, but let's be honest, few really understand. Getting a divorce in Romania. It's so often painted as this single, really difficult road. But as we're about to see, it's actually more like a fork in the road, with a few different paths you can take. So let's just jump right in with the biggest question on everyone's mind. When you hear the word divorce, do you immediately picture a long, messy, expensive courtroom drama? That's the common assumption, right? But is that really the case in Romania? Well, the short answer is a definite no. The law in Romania actually gives you several ways to dissolve a marriage, and each one is designed for a different set of circumstances. This is so important because it means you've got options. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll bust that big divorce myth. Then we'll look at the 3 legal pathways you can take. We'll boil it all down to 2 key questions that point you in the right direction, compare the whole process from papers to timelines, and wrap up with how to make the right choice for your situation. All right, first things first. Let's talk about that courtroom stereotype. The reality of how divorce works in Romania is actually a lot more flexible than most people think. We're kind of conditioned to think that divorce has to be a fight. But what if it didn't? What if it could be a process that's actually built on agreement, on efficiency? That's a huge shift in perspective, and it's the key to a much smoother journey. And that idea, well, that brings us right to the heart of the matter, the 3 totally distinct pathways to separation. Getting your head around these is really the first step to taking control of the situation. So get this, the Romanian Civil Code doesn't just give you one option, it gives you 3. You've got the traditional court process, you've got a notarial agreement handled by a notary, and in some cases, you can use a simple administrative solution. These are 3 very different roads. Let's start with the one everybody knows, the judicial process. This is the classic courtroom route. It's the path you have to take when you and your spouse just can't see eye to eye on everything, whether it's about assets, child custody, or something else. The court steps in to make the final calls. Now, this is where things get really interesting, the notarial path. This is a much faster out-of-court option where a public notary just validates the agreement you've both made. And here's the absolute game changer. You can use this path even if you have minor children, as long as you're in 100% agreement on all the terms of their care. And finally, there's the administrative solution. You can really think of this as the express lane for divorce. It is by far the fastest and simplest way to do it. But, and this is a big but, it has some very strict requirements. You have to agree on everything, and you cannot have any minor children together. Okay, so you've got 3 options on the table. How in the world do you figure out which one is for you? Well, it actually comes down to answering 2 pretty straightforward questions. Here's question number 1, and honestly, it's the big one. Can you and your spouse sit down and come to a total, mutual agreement on everything? Your answer right here, this is the first major fork in the road. If you say no, you're probably heading to court. If you can say yes, then you've got other doors open to you. So let's say you answered yes to that first question. You're both on the same page. Well, this second question decides which of the faster paths you can take. Are there any minor children involved? Your answer here is what points you toward either the administrative route or the notarial one. All right, we've got the decision tree down. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. What do these different paths actually look like day to day? We're talking process, paperwork, and probably what you're really wondering, how long is this all going to take? When you put them side by side like this, the difference really pops. The streamlined paths on the left, civil or notarial, they demand that you have everything settled before you even start. The judicial process on the right, that's literally why it exists, for when you have disagreements that only a judge can resolve. And folks, this is where the rubber meets the road. The real-world impact of that choice is huge. A streamlined process can be done and dusted in about 60 days, 2 months. But going through the courts, you're looking at an average of 9 months. And let's be real, it can often take much, much longer. Now, one really important thing to know is that even on the fastest tracks, there's a legal safeguard built right in. After you file the paperwork, a mandatory 30-day cooling-off period starts. It's there to make sure the decision isn't just a rash one. Only after you both come back to confirm that you still want to proceed can the divorce be finalized. And no matter which path you take, you're going to need to get your documents in order. We're talking about the original marriage certificate, valid IDs for both of you, proof of where you live, and if you're going the notarial route with kids, that detailed parenting plan is absolutely non-negotiable. So, this brings us to our final section. You now know the options, you know the questions to ask, and you know the practical differences. But, having the map is one thing, actually navigating the terrain is a whole other story. And look, don't just take it from me. This quote from a legal analysis on the topic says it all. Talking to an expert early in the process isn't just helpful, it's critical. They're the ones who can help you look at your situation objectively and choose the path that's going to be the most effective and, hopefully, the least painful. Because at the end of the day, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. There's no single best way to get divorced. The right path for you is completely tied to your unique situation. How well can you and your spouse cooperate? What do your kids need? How complicated are your finances? Those are the things that will define your journey. And so I'll just leave you with this final question. We've laid out the map, we've shown you the different roads you can take. The real question now is, who will you have in your corner to help you choose the right one and to help you navigate it successfully?